This is the second battle between AggonyDuck and Jonasnee. AggonyDuck picked Galatia and Jonasnee picked Carthage. And the way faction picks were done in this tournament was that each player picked 5 factions, so they had a faction pool. Then there were bans and picks in place. The attacker picked the faction first, the defender countered the faction, and then the attacker picked the map. So a potentially huge advantage for the attacker, because the attacker is going to choose the terrain based on the faction he's facing. So barbarian factions are going to do well against a faction like Carthage here, because while the Libyan infantry is good, their charge bonus of 18 is nowhere near the charge bonus of 28 for the Galatian legionaries. And for Carthage we have 6 Libyan infantry, we have 2 late Libyan hoplites on each flank, we have the very dangerous African war elephants, 4 Carthaginian cavalry, 3 mercenary Balearics, and a general's bodyguard. Galatia has brought 3 mercenary horse skirmishers, and these cannot fight in melee very well, but what they can do is do massive amounts of damage to cavalry and to elephants. They have 41 missile damage and a bonus against large, so they're going to wreck elephants and cavalry. They are also light missiles, so it's going to be hard to catch them. The Galatians also have access to Syrian archers, so they have some long-range firepower, but the Syrian archers are going to lose to mercenary Balearic slingers unless the mercenary Balearic slingers are microed poorly. They also have the very strong mercenary Cappadocian cavalry that's going to make mincemeat of Carthaginian cavalry. They have 6 Galatian legionaries in the center, and a mix of levy freemen and Galatian spears. The general is a Galatian nobleman, so only skirmishing cavalry for Panda Warrior. Basically the same type of setup that he used in the previous battle, just with less swords. Galatia doesn't really need a lot of swords to deal with Carthage. What Galatia needs is several tools to deal with the African elephants, to stop the elephants from just wrecking the entire sword line of Galatia. Wisely pulling away the Syrian archers, he doesn't need to win the skirmish, he just needs to take care of the African elephants with his archers. They are the most dangerous. It might be a bit dangerous for... if he loses his Cappadocians, that's going to be bad. But here you can see how quickly 41 missile damage is going to take down Carthaginian cavalry. Jonasnee is not able to screen effectively here. He should have peeled off some of these late Libyan hoplites just to screen away the mercenary horse skirmishers. The late Libyan hoplites are not as good as levy freemen at screening because they don't have javelins, so they won't be able to throw javelins. Jonasnee trying to catch the mercenary horse skirmishers. That's not really going to happen. All he's accomplishing here is getting his Carthaginian cavalry depleted. So this is what you don't want to do when you're up against light missile cavalry with medium melee cavalry. It's just going to tire out the Carthaginian cavalry, and against 41 missile damage, it's going to absolutely destroy the Carthaginian cavalry. This Carthaginian cavalry is very close to becoming combat ineffective, and when and if it engages Cappadocian cavalry, it's just going to have taken too much damage and it's going to be destroyed instantly. So very nicely done here by AggonyDuck. But then again, this might be intentional by Jonasnee to make sure that these units lose all of their javelins to the Carthaginian cavalry, so they don't have them available for the elephants. But the mercenary horse skirmishers are going to get taken down so quickly when they get caught here. So a micro mistake by Duck that's going to cost him most of this unit, still being able to take down more Carthaginian cavalry, but he lost 19 mercenary horse skirmishers totally unnecessarily there. Another unit of Carthaginian cavalry that has a death wish. And not much else going on in the center here. And doing this for Jonasnee is super risky. Not a good engagement at all. The Carthaginian cavalry is much more expensive than the mercenary horse skirmishers, so this is actually very effective for Panda Warrior in drawing away the cavalry of Carthage, and for Duck for drawing away the cavalry of Carthage. The question is if he should have saved those javelins for the African war elephants instead. That remains to be seen. So neither player wants to move up and start skirmishing, it looks like, because the stationary units are almost always going to get the better of the engagement, because they're going to start firing earlier. The question is if this terrain is going to be able to protect the mercenary Syrian archers enough. It doesn't look like it, but Jonasnee is not focusing fire here. And that could potentially be huge, because if he isn't focusing fire, then it's going to take a lot more volleys to destroy the individual units of Syrian archers. So focusing on one unit would enable the mercenary Balearic slingers to destroy these units of mercenary Syrian archers, but now they're really not going to be able to do that because they are firing at individual units. Mercenary horse skirmishers, presumably out of ammunition, running in and stopping the Carthaginian cavalry. They are going to lose against the Carthaginian cavalry, but it's going to buy Galatia valuable time. Jonasnee could just have kept moving his Carthaginian cavalry here and gone for the mercenary Syrian archers, but now the Carthaginian cavalry is getting stopped. Jonasnee is firing into his own men there, but Carthaginian cavalry is just getting hit by javelins from the Galatian spears, and that's it for the Carthaginian cavalry. The engagement starts happening, the elephants are moving in, they're going to wreck this unit of Galatian legionaries, but so many arrows incoming from the Syrian archers. This was a super risky engagement by Jonasnee. The African war elephants are taking a lot of damage. They are not running amok just yet, but they are dying. Now they are running amok, and they're going to start running away from the mercenary Syrian archers. They're just going to stand and fire. And when Carthage loses its elephants here, Carthage is losing its skirmishers as well to the Cappadocians. Carthage can't do anything to this Galatian build right now. They lost their two most important components, the skirmishers and the African war elephants, without them really doing much. And now the Galatian swords and the Galatian cavalry is going to have a field day in destroying the rest of the Carthaginian army. Spear warriors, Galatian spears, are going to defeat the late Libyan hoplites if given a bit more time. The elephants just were not effective in this battle, and rushing them in frontally against mercenary Syrian archers, that's going to be a disaster in any and all situations. Libyan infantry losing to the Galatian legionaries. A nice charge here coming in with Carthaginian cavalry against the Syrians, getting a nice rear charge against all of these Galatian legionaries, but the unit is just not strong enough to make a meaningful contribution to that melee. Although it is going to break the Syrian archers have done their job in destroying the elephants. Now it's just a matter of grinding it out for the Galatian legionaries against Carthage. All of the Carthaginian units are either very depleted or they are engaged. Mercenary Cappadocian cavalry getting a lot of kills, fighting it out against the Carthaginian cavalry, which they should be able to defeat very easily. Nice kills on the Cappadocians against both skirmishers and cavalry. Carthaginian cavalry is just so much worse than the Cappadocians. The advantage with Carthaginian cavalry is that you can just bring more of it, but Duck was able to neutralize the cavalry of Carthage very well by using his horse skirmishers against them. And here we have mercenary horse skirmishers going in for rail charges, and they can be useful in this role, just to incur the morale penalty on the Libyan infantry. They're not going to get a lot of kills this way, but they don't need to get kills to give the Libyan infantry morale penalties. Not much Carthage can do. When the elephants went down, it was a GG. There was no way that the Carthaginian infantry was going to be able to grind it out against the Galatian legionaries. So well played here by Duck. Jonasnee was lost his most important unit in a very risky frontal assault, and you never want to do a frontal assault with elephants against the skirmish line. We're just going to see Carthage chain rout now. The army losing is going to give them a minus 75 penalty to the morale, and that means most, not all units are going to start routing off the field quickly. So good kills on the mercenary Cappadocians, important kills on the mercenary horse skirmishers in taking down the Carthaginian cavalry. The mercenary Syrian archers did well in taking care of the elephants. The elephants were in large neutralized. Not a whole lot of kills here for either player, but the Carthaginian army was fairly small, and killing the general and killing the Libyan infantry just meant, and the skirmishers just meant that the very few units that were left for Carthage were just going to rout off the field. So convincing victory for AggonyDuck. Galatia is a strong faction that can counter Carthage well due to bringing bringing the horse skirmishers and the foot skirmishers. And at least in my experience and in my opinion, I feel much safer against elephants if I have both foot and horse skirmishers, because the horse skirmishers can be a mobile threat to the elephants, and the foot skirmishers can do more damage over longer range than the horse skirmishers can. But having both in an army can be very, very useful. And the Carthaginian swords, if Carthage decides to go for a bit of cavalry, a bit of skirmishing, essentially go for a balanced build with an elephant, then Carthage is usually going to be outmatched in either infantry, cavalry, or both. In this case, it was both. They were outmatched in both skirmishing and in the cavalry capacity of the armies, and AggonyDuck was able to capitalize on that, take out the elephants, and then the rest of the army just disintegrated. So AggonyDuck advances to the next round of the tournament. I haven't been able to get the replays from that yet, but I hope I will. Thanks for watching. Strength and honor.